Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. Hope you're having a great week. This week we got the regular section is going to be about the game that you choose to play. And it's really helpful to think about it that way because the game that you choose to play helps you frame how you deal with adversity when you're playing. And we're going to focus on losses, but you can apply the same thought process to any part of the game that you're feeling adverse about. So we're going to talk about that. And then in the RIFF, I'm going to talk about how to stop being a 12-year-old. And this is a personal story that happened recently to me. So that's how the RIFF is supposed to be when I have these kind of stories for you. So I'm going to share it with you in the RIFF. If we have not met before, I'm your host, Tony Roig. I am a master teaching professional as well as a senior professional pickleball player. I've dedicated the last roughly 6+ years of my life to helping pickleball players improve in general, and the last 4 years really focused on the mental part of the game, including being the host of this podcast, which is dedicated to your pickleball mind, as I say at the beginning. It's called Pickleball Therapy for a reason, because here's the thing, folks. There is, pickleball is beautiful. Pickleball is amazing. I've been able to play the last 2 days and reconnected with a lot of why I love this sport. With some friends and just really nice matches, really nice, just beautiful sport, right? And but I would say that the biggest benefit of pickleball is not playing, and it's not not just playing, I should say, and not the body, even though the body's important. I would suggest to you that the biggest benefit of pickleball is actually with your mind, actually with your happiness as a human being, and just better quality of life, which comes from the mind. And so the better you're able to master the mental part of pickleball, it's not just that you'll play better, which is great. We, love it. Let's play better. But the bigger picture is you'll feel better and you'll just be a happier human being, which is amazing. So that's my passion, and I hope to be able to share that with you through this podcast, continue to share it through this podcast. This podcast is brought to you ad-free by the Better Pickleball Academy. Better Pickleball Academy has courses designed around pickleball, including a fantastic mental course in there by my mentor in this process and a great thinker about the mental part of sport, Coach Peter Scales. Coach Pete, as he likes to be referred to, he devised the concept Complete You Learn Honor, which is a really good framework for understanding pickleball and perspective. So check out his course as well as a lot of other fantastic courses in there. Good time to continue working on your game inside the Better Pickleball Academy. Have a shout out here from Adam on the Pickleball Therapy YouTube channel. Adam, thank you very much for sharing this, what your experience, not just your experience, but also the one of your new friend in pickleball. And if you didn't know, we do have a YouTube channel on Pickleball Therapy on YouTube. If you haven't been on there yet, make sure you check it out. If you go on there, subscribe to the channel. The bigger the channel gets, the more it reaches other players. So Adam says, such great content, Tony. Pickleball Therapy is for people who want a more resilient perspective. I love that. Resilient perspective. Great way of framing it on the sport we love and the framework it provides for a more satisfying life. What did I just say? Right? Maybe I was influenced by reading that earlier. I'm not sure. But that's what we're talking about. It's quality of life, right? A few days ago, I met a guy who said that pickleball helped him navigate both a divorce and recovery from substance abuse. Now, that is some powerful mojo. Agreed. I mean, pickleball is beautiful. What happens with pickleball, and I'll pivot now to the main point of this podcast, or the main section of this podcast, is that we get lost. We lose perspective. And if you can keep a perspective, I'm going to suggest this to you. There is no reason for any person ever to stop playing pickleball, other than I physically cannot play pickleball anymore. Literally, like I can't get on the court. And I would suggest even then, there's ways to play pickleball. I played in the hybrid during the U.S. Open, and I learned afterward that one of the players is a player who, at that point in her life, was not able to walk because I believe it was a knee replacement or a double knee replacement. It was something that basically she's normally able to walk, right? So she normally can walk, but she could not play pickleball standing. So what did she do? She actually played pickleball in a wheelchair for the Open, right? Because she wanted to compete. She wanted to be a part of it. And that's allowed, right? And so, again, you don't want to play, it's too much to play from a physical standpoint. That's fine. But there's a lot of ways to engage with the sport. And I would suggest to you that there's no reason a player would ever leave pickleball as long as that player has a good perspective on the sport that they play. Now, this concept we're going to be talking about here is a little bit of tough love, right? I'm gonna have to be a little bit tough with you, in a nice way, in a caring way, but it is tough love because what we're going to be talking about, the way we're going to frame this, is that this is a sport that you have voluntarily chosen to play. Very important, right? This is not, something that you do to feed your family, something that you do to stay alive, if you will. I mean, there's none of that. This is entirely voluntary. You choose to play pickleball, and I'm glad you do. I mean, that's fantastic. But the reason that's important is because when you play the sport, there are going to be times that is going to feel bad, potentially, right? Without the right perspective. And when we're talking about that, we're always talking about losses, right? Because no one ever feels bad winning, right? It's not like come off the court winning and you're upset. No, it's upset when we're losing, right? We're talking that, some this last few weeks, but I want to give you another way of thinking about it, which is that if you choose to play pickleball, which again, I'm glad you do, you must accept the reality that you will, in fact, lose games. Okay? That is not just a possibility, it's a certainty. It's got to be a reality. Okay? And I want you to think about that not as a negative, right? That's where the perspective thing comes in. It's not a negative that there's a chance of loss. It's not a negative that you will lose games, because you have chosen to play a sport that has a score, that has a winner, and that has a loser at the end of every game. That is how this sport is constructed. There are other things that you can do in life that don't involve winning and losing. For instance, you could take up running. Now, in theory, you could do competitive running too, but forgetting about that for a second, you could run, right? You go out there, run 2 miles, run whatever you want to run. Just do your thing, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. And runners are very happy doing what they do. You can go out there you can toss frisbee with your friend. You can play catch. You can play things like kadima, where you just hit the ball around, no scoring, right? All those sorts of things. There's plenty of things that you could do that don't necessarily involve a competition where there's tracking of score and an ultimate winner. And the thing about pickleball, and I would suggest to you that the way that pickleball is structured is part of what makes it so appealing, right? It's that there's, I think we would still have some fun if we went out there and just hit the ball around, right? It'd be fine. But you know how it is. I mean, at some point someone would say like, okay, let's count, right? Because it's more interesting for us as humans. I mean, even like, when I drill with friends, we'll hit some balls, and then we'll just go like, okay, let's play to 11 on dinking only or something, and we'll have some rules in effect, because that's how our brains are wired, and we enjoy that. And so the only downside of keeping score is if you feel bad the times that you're not the winner in that situation, right? But if you frame it out right and you say, wait a minute, that's just part of what I signed up for, right? That's part of this deal. It's not like you're going into this, with your eyes closed, right? And like, you don't know that we keep score, and you don't know that there's a winner and a loser. And then you take that idea, right, that it's a voluntary activity, and you marry that with, and you can come at it with a bunch of different ways, but let's just take one. You come at it from a place of empathy, okay? A place of there's a really good word called sonder, and actually I'm gonna look it up while we're talking here. I'm gonna give you the full definition in a second, but it's a fantastic word, and it basically talks about respecting others. So the definition of sonder is this: S-O-N-D-E-R. The feeling one has on realizing that every other individual one sees has a life as full and real as one's own. Basically, they are the central character of their show, right? Of their movie, of their life, the same way you are in yours. So when you think that way, right? So you come into this, I'm playing a game that has a winner and a loser. I'm going to recognize Sonder, right? I'm going to like acknowledge Sonder as a thing, right? Which means I want to win, but so does my opponent, who oftentimes is not merely an opponent. More often than not, your opponent is your friend. Sometimes a very dear friend. Sometimes a pickleball friend. They're not mutually exclusive, right? You can have pickleball friends with dear friend too, but sometimes it's just someone you play pickleball with. That's fine. They're still your friend. Other times they're a dear friend. Now, if you come at it from this empathetic, Sonder kind of, place, right? Vantage, then your loss is their what? Is their win. Just like their loss is your win. And so even though it's kind of a zero-sum game, if you can remove the negative, right? Meaning if you can remove the negative feeling and latch on, kind of developing something as I'm talking here, but I think it works pretty good, right? So think about it this way. Winning is a positive, right? Like people feel good when they win. That's great, right? Players feel positive when they win. What if we can tap into the positive of our friend? In other words, tap into the happiness that they feel and the happiness that we can feel for them without getting dragged down by a negative on our side, right? So we're changing the paradigm from what normally should be a zero-sum situation, right? And in a purely abstract, logical sense, it's zero-sum because there's a winner and a loser, right? So by definition, that means zero-sum. But if we can actually tap into their happiness, into their positive, we then remove the zero-sum and it becomes essentially a win-win. And you could say, okay, they won more than I won. That's fine, right? Because yours is derivative, right? You have a derivative positive. Theirs is the pure positive. You want to think about it that way. They have like the uncut positive, and yours is cut a little bit because you're taking it from them a little. You're receiving it from them, but it's still a positive, right? And in that situation, you take away the negativity of the loss and you gain the positivity of the win. But whether you want to go that far with me or not, the more I think about it, the more I like it. But whether you want to go that far with me or not, give some thought to the reality that you have signed up for. The reality that you play a game with a winner and a loser, where not only is there a chance you're going to lose, but you will in fact lose games. And given the fact that you signed up for that, then when the loss happens, don't be surprised, don't be upset, don't be frustrated by it, don't feel down by it. It's simply part and parcel of the game that you love and the game that you have signed up to play. So hopefully that helps you when you're out there. If you can marry it with the idea of, celebrating your friend and celebrating their win and being happy for them and understanding that your loss was a condition to their win, maybe that'll help you out. And then you go to the positive sum, zero sum thing that I just that just developed during this podcast. You're seeing it live. This sausage is made sometime, folks. These ideas, you're talking, you're thinking, or you're writing, right? And then in those processes, these things develop. So I have to make a note about that zero sum idea right before we're done here, because I'm going to keep developing that. All right, in the riff, I'm going to talk about stop acting like a 12-year-old. I think you'll like my story I'm going to share with you. And but before I do, again, Better Pickleball Academy, right? I got to mention it one more time. Better Pickleball Academy. And here's the thing about the Academy is that the courses in there are designed to cover specific areas. Actually, we were very surprised because we did a really, I think it's a really good course on lob coverage and defense. Basically it's like, if you're getting lobbed, this will tell you how not to get lobbed, right? Or not how not to get lobbed, but how to reduce the chance of lobbing, because there's a way to squeeze it. And then how to cover, right? When you get lobbed, how to cover safely and effectively, and different techniques to do it and stuff like that. What's interesting about lobbing is what's interesting is that like it so far, it's kind of crickets, right? Like doesn't seem to be generating interest with players, which is surprising because I know a lot of you deal with lobs all the time. And in speaking with CJ about it, it seems like it's a little bit of maybe like players think that like lobs are kind of easy, right? Like basically like, I just need I just need somebody to point me in a little bit of the right direction without realizing the complexity of the subject. Because I got to tell you, when I got done with that course, 14 videos, I think it was 14 videos. I mean, it's a lot of content because there's all sorts of variables you got to deal with on covering lobs, right? And also, ideally we want to reduce them first. So if we can reduce them, let's do that, right? So there's all that in there and then there. But anyway, so there's really good courses in the academy. And, whenever you interact with us on anything like that, remember that we always have a money back guarantee. So like if you're sitting on the fence and you're like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this or whatever, that's your call. You're an adult, you do you. But anyway, it's just, there's really no reason not to. If you have an area of the game that's bugging you, like bangers or lobs, or you want to know more about, attacks up at the non-volley zone, whether it's dinking or volley attacks, things like that. We got a course from Dylan Frazier, number one player in pickleball, is going to tell you how to get to the transition zone. Why not learn from Dylan? Anyway, so check that out at the Better Pickleball Academy, and I'll put a link down in the show notes. All right, let me share with you my story that happened. And as I mentioned earlier, I've had the good fortune of, I've been traveling a lot, so I haven't been in the local, in the cycle with my friends here locally playing with them. So I've been kind of like off the list, right? Because I just haven't been around. So I reached out and I told a few of my friends that I was back in town and love to play whenever possible. So got a couple of invites, which is always appreciated, and just really fun pickleball, like joking and just it's a really, and the points fantastic. I mean, incredible rallies. We had some folks who were sitting there watching us play and they were like, "Oh my God, this is crazy!" Really good stuff, right? But so what happened is I'm playing, and I'll tell you his name because he and I are good enough friends that we can do this. And so we're playing in a foursome, and one of the players on the court's a friend of mine named David, right, who's the mayor of pickleball here, right, and a good friend of mine over the years. Anyway, so there was a ball that got hit to my side, and the other Larry is on my side, right? So Larry sees it out. It's a dink. It was a dink, I'm pretty sure. It was a drop or a dink. It was a short shot. Right in front of Larry, like lands right in front of Larry. And Larry calls it out. And it was close. It was definitely close. It wasn't 2 feet out and it wasn't 2 feet in. So, or even 2 inches out, 2 inches in. It was very close. It was right there. And so David looked at me, which is fine, right? And, and I looked at him and I said, listen, like, honestly, I wouldn't have called it out like from where I was standing. I couldn't make the call from there, but I don't have enough to overrule Larry, right? So, that's where I'm at. I know it's uncomfortable, but that's life, right? I'm not overruling my partner on what I saw in that situation. Plus, I know Larry's literally standing like in a place where he could see it. It wasn't like a hard shot that he couldn't see. Anyway, so, and I may have misread the situation after that, but I felt like David wasn't happy there. So that made me not happy there. And so they give me the ball, right? So it's a side out. So they give me the ball. And I'm like, my sense is David isn't happy, right? So I don't want to do that. So I just toss it back to him like, well, just take the point, right? I'm just kind of pissed, but I'm like, just take the point. Which of course now, you know how this is, right? They're not going to take the point. So, and I don't want to serve. So it gets kind of weird, right? And so this is where I become like a 12-year-old. I think now I believe it's adult behavior, but I don't want to serve. So I take the ball, I go back to serve, and I take the ball and I serve it like 4 feet out. Probably was a little further, but whatever. I serve it way out, like mega point, right? And that's where I kind of like as a 12-year-old, that I'm like, okay, I'm going to be sort of a child here in child behavior. And then David, I think correctly, was like, all right, well, it was a pleasure playing with y'all today. It was the end of the day anyway. Fortunately, we didn't end there. I got to tell you that. So we didn't end there. We kind of looked at each other. It was like I had that moment of tension, and then I was like, all right, just give me the ball. Let's just play. So I give me the ball. We played. We had actually, it was a really good match. It was like one of those 13-11s, went into overtime. We tap paddles. We actually went to have coffee afterwards. Everything's fine. But the point is, and so David and I exchanged some texts, and I said, listen, I'm sorry for the situation earlier, and so we went back and forth. And then the last thing I said to him was, we're talking about how because he's on his journey as well, right? He's on a journey of mental journey. We all are, right? We're adults, but we're still trying to work on ourselves. And so I told him, I said, the final thing I said, you know what? I said, I agree with what you're saying, but I just, I'm working on trying not to act like a 12-year-old. So and he laughed. So there was, I thought it was an interesting way of framing it for myself, right? Because that's what I did. I acted like a child in that moment, right? When I hit the ball, way out of bounds, and just not something that that it's not the end of the world, but something that, in a perfect world, I would not have done. So I wanted to share that with you all to let you know that, well, one, tell you a story, but also, this is a continuing process, right? And it's the kind of thing where, all of us are going to do things. I can't speak for everybody, right? But it's not that you're all going to do the same things, but we're all going to either do things or feel things that upon reflection, upon further thought process, right? Maybe we can reframe, maybe we could have done differently and things like that. And so, that's the reason we do this podcast, is to help with that process. And I've said this before, for myself, as well as hopefully for you all out there. So if you're on that journey, on your mental journey, know that we're all in the same boat. We're all hopefully rowing in roughly the same direction, meaning we're all trying to move forward with ourselves and improve ourselves in that area. And anyway, so stick with it and you will see improvement, because I will tell you personally, the mental side of my game has radically changed. And I think if David was here right now, he would tell you that he has also, he sees the game differently now than he did before. And I think he would say that part of it is based on our interactions, because that's something that he and I talk about. So anyway, so keep working at it, and don't be too hard on yourself if you backslide from time to time and act like a 12-year-old, a 6-year-old, or whatever your child age is when you do whatever it is you do or think out there. That's this week's podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, please rate and review us if you can. Share it with anybody you know. And I've started to ask this a little bit more. We always ask you to share with your friends, but if you have a pickleball club that you're involved with, if you can share it with them, really appreciate. There was a post recently in the pickleball, or there was a reference to us, I should say, in the it's the Pickleball Forum for Women, I believe, in Facebook, I believe it was called, but it's a pickleball group that's for women inside the Facebook. And so, I'll pull it next time. I apologize. I meant to pull it up this time to share, but that the sharing of that post, right, or the making of that post is the kind of thing that maybe somebody else looks at it and says, you know what, I'm going to check it out, right, because I could benefit from that as well. So if you can do that and it's natural for you, we appreciate you doing that. And as I've said before, our objective is to try and help not just me, but help as many players as can benefit from the messaging that we have here and the concepts that we share at Pickleball Therapy. And lastly, as always, please share with your friends, because remember, if you enjoy the podcast, they probably will too. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to meeting you next time inside Pickleball Therapy. Be well.